Sarah, thank you for taking the time to come on the podcast. For those of you who don't know, Sarah does product. She basically helps companies with their product. And so I'm just gonna have her introduce herself for you. Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, Chan. Thank you so much for having me. To give you a little bit of my background, I have pretty much all possible engineering degrees from electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, bio, nano engineering, and also I have done a lot of coding in my past life. But then I found my interest in product management, and as a summary, it's like how to build a product. And the most relevant work I have done and that was kind of officially the beginning of my journey in product management. Was when I was at Google. I worked from New York office between 2014 and 2019. And I went to Google bright-eyed, super excited to figure out and understand how Google builds amazing products. And what I learned there is that there was no process. They didn't know how they do. So it was kind of a draw of luck. 10 teams will fail, and one team maybe out of 10, sometimes one team out of 100 will win. And I was very surprised, and I said, you know what, there is a lot of knowledge at Google because eventually some teams really succeed, and I'm really curious to understand how they do it. I started studying it, and I ended up creating a new role for myself that never existed at Google. Was Global Lead of Product Excellence. And in that role, I tried to learn and figure out and help other teams and other members, other Googlers per se, learn how to build excellent products.
That's actually a crazy backstory. Why did you get so many engineering degrees?
Simply because I was curious. I loved everything. I couldn't decide, and I started with electrical engineering, majoring in biomedical engineering. Then I always loved mechanical engineering, so I got my first master's degree in mechanical engineering, again focused on bio, and then I moved to nano engineering a little bit. Then I had a scholarship. I came to US. I did research on my master's. So I grew up in Iran. I did my undergrad in Iran, my first master's in Germany. Then I came to US to do the master thesis. Then I started the first, my first PhD. I'm a double PhD dropout, so I really tried. So the first one was at University of California, San Diego. When the Department of Nano Engineering started, I was the first graduate student registering there, but then they hit some recession. They couldn't fix the budget. I transferred to UCLA, and I started the second PhD program in nanobioengineering. But after a year, I decided maybe PhD in engineering field is not the right thing for me, and I got a second master's degree and started working and then moved to tech.
Oh, wow. Do you think that, because you've done all these types of engineering, do you think there's a specific type of engineering that is better for certain personalities?
Yes, and I don't know. It's a good question. Let me think about it. I mean, for me, you're asking somebody who has done all and really, really enjoyed. I think it comes about maybe I can answer the question, what is engineering, right? And what kind of mindset it takes. Maybe from my own perspective, probably different people have different ideas, but for me, my passion for engineering, what I loved about it is you gain this skill of problem solving. So I was always growing up, I was super curious. I loved to figure out complex situation, like my mom would always say, whatever problem, Sarah will come up with some solution. So I had these things. I was fascinated with math and science and biology and all that stuff. That's pretty much why I started my undergrad with biomedical, because I couldn't decide. I was interested in math and science. I was interested in biology. I loved coding. And I figured as an engineering student, I will always do coding anyway. So kind of I chose the path that I could cover all my passion. And then when I moved to nano engineering, it was the cutting edge, the really big growth of nano engineering. And I loved what I was doing. I was on the cutting edge of the cutting edge technology. Maybe, I need to think about the question you asked, like what kind of people are good for engineering. But I can tell you what engineering gave me, all my education in engineering. Um, and also a second part of that would be what is, the difference between software engineering and hardcore engineering that I call it. Because considering all my degrees are very physical engineering, electrical engineering, you design circuits and eventually, you design electric motors, mechanical engineering, you design stuff, right, that has representation in the actual world. And my first master degree was on artificial joints development. So if you have a hip replacement or knee replacement, how to design it, what material to choose, how much bio-inert characteristics they need to have, that if you implant it in your body, you want to make sure it doesn't rust. You want to make sure that the body cannot, the abrasion it gets from being in the body and exposed to the fluid is not going to break it and dissolve it really quick. And then one thing in those hardcore engineering fields you learn is that every action, every decision you make has consequences. When you're building an implant, you have to really think 10, 15, 20 years ahead, because a person cannot have this joint replaced every few years. Every time they have the joint replacement, a little bit of their bones would be removed to place the implant. So theoretically, a person shouldn't have to need more than two replacement in their lifetime. But software engineer, interestingly enough, what is different in it is that you could really quick put some code together, launch it, then go live and see how it works. And if it doesn't work, you can just change it. There is no harm done to the public and then or any physical manifestation. So you don't have to have that really long-term thinking. And that is kind of like pros and cons depending on what you want to do. And that's why software development and innovation has changed the world so much, because you can try a million things. And if 100 of them work out of the million, we have 100 amazing companies that are working. And if it doesn't work, you just keep trying. But if you're designing a car or you're designing a physical being, whatever that be, and then you're designing a mold, and that mold to take it to production, creating that mold system might cost you millions of dollars. So this slightest change, even if you think about like a cell phone design, if you want to move, let's say where the connector is by a millimeter, that could cost you millions of dollars because you have to create the whole new system. So that's the difference. And I think as a hardcore engineer in the field of software engineering, that type of thinking about the future, about productivity, about efficiency, about longevity has helped me to stand out in the field of software engineers, because majority of software engineers don't have it. I'm not saying they are not creative or cool, or they don't have the skills they need. I'm just saying my approach is slightly different, and I quite enjoy mixing both together.
So, would you say that software engineering is more of like a trial and error kind of thing, whereas like the physical engineering, like for joints, for bridges, for more of sort of objects, it's more of more critical thinking?
Yes. Well, trial and error that you mentioned, we have a phrase for it, which is prototype, right? So, you create a prototype and you test it and see if it works or not. So if you're a software engineering and your prototype doesn't work, the only thing you have to do is go back to your computer and change the code. And hopefully you can fix it. Even if it doesn't work, you can fix it again. And then, if you have heard some terms, for example, A/B testing, which means you have, for example, imagine Amazon.com or Amazon app, you're working on it and using it, but they want to change and see, if the address bar or search bar is on top and they want to put it at the bottom, would it increase the engagement or reduce it, or how the behavior of user will change? What they would do, for example, they will have a very limited, a small sliver of users exposed to this new design, and then they can compare, because it's software, right? You can control what code each person sees, but in hardware you don't have this chance, right? So you need to have a little bit more longer term planning, which might be calling for a different type of critical thinking, because there are too many variables and you have a lot more constraints. In software engineering, you have a lot more flexibility.
Okay. So then I want to move on. How did you get into tech and product?
The story was interesting. When I did my undergrad in electrical engineering, majoring in bioelectrical engineering, as I said, I chose this because it could cover everything, and I assumed as an engineer I would do enough coding. When I was finishing my undergrad, I realized I didn't do as much coding as I wanted. So we had to do an undergrad thesis, and I somehow convinced the university to allow me to write this e-learning system for a university, which back in the day, the university didn't have a very comprehensive system. And to connect it to biomedical engineering, I just said, we can launch it for medical school, which was kind of really irrelevant to the topic, but I managed to do it and I loved it. And then after doing all my education and dropping out of PhD, I was tired of being like a poor student and working so hard. I wanted to go back to work. I worked for a very short period of time in pharmaceutical consulting because I thought that relates to my bio background, but I really did not enjoy working in that field. And then that learning management system that I had designed for my undergrad kind of helped me to get a first job in tech in Los Angeles at a company called Cornerstone On Demand, and they are learning management system for enterprise. So the lesson here for me was, when I followed my passion, which is, on my undergrad and doing a coding system that was really frowned upon, and I had to fight it in order to be able to do what I really wanted to do, eventually opened the doors for my, my whole life career in tech. So sometimes going the path that you want to do and you're passionate about a random project, it might be really worth it. For me, it was.
Okay, so now you're in product. What is it that you do exactly in product? Like product development?
Good question. So there are many different perspectives I can look at this question and answer. One is, what is a product, right? Like, what do we call a product? So I want for you to think about it for a minute. Like, if I ask you, what is a product? What comes to your mind?
Um, Whatever a company is exchanging of value for money.
You're pretty much on the target. So the way I describe it is whatever a team of one or more people create, produce, and offer to other people to use it is a product. Whatever you produce is a product in that sense. And this production or product could be a sofa, it could be electronic device, it could be software, it could be a hip implant, it could be anything. And how do we, and if I want to switch to a different perspective, is that how do we build product? And everybody who builds a product wants to build an excellent product, right? And then nobody, if you for a moment think about one of the products that you love and one of the products that you hate. Can you give me an answer? Like, what is a product? Is an app? Is a physical product that you use and you love versus something that you really is frustrating every time you need to use it?
Um, I'd say my iPad is my favorite product. Um, I don't really own any products that I don't like. Oh, I don't like trains and buses.
That's a
I
product,
don't
right?
like the communal stuff, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then, so the question is, what are the qualities about your iPad that makes you like it and love it, right? And what are the qualities about public transport that make you really not like it, right?
My iPad, because it's like portable and easy. You can just use your
Mm-hmm.
finger.
Yeah.
Um, Public transport, it's dirty. Um, you have to like deal with a lot of people that you don't know. Some might be
Yes.
crazy.
Yes.
Um, you don't have control over the time
Yes.
because sometimes there's a delay and you're kind of screwed.
Yeah. 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 These are very, very true. But you have, I assume you have been into at least a few countries in your lifetime. I don't know if you have been in any country that the public transport was better or different.
Actually, yeah, I think Japan has pretty good public
Yeah.
transport.
Yeah. Yeah.
New York public transport, oh,
I've lived in New York for 6 years. I know what you're talking about. It's so you see when you want to really think about a product and what makes it amazing and what makes it not so amazing. There are many, many different perspectives. The convenience, the ease of use, the ick factor. Is it, it's dirty or is it clean? And in two different public transport, easily you can say, New York is really dirty, and Japan, I agree. I love public transportation in Japan. It's really clean and convenient and on time. Like people set their watches based on the train, timing because they're on time. So then when we talk about product, how do you build a product? You really have to understand before even starting is, first of all, you have to have clarity of idea what you want to build, and then what is the quality you want to deliver. And in order to understand that, we at Google, going back to when I was the global lead of product excellence at Google, one of my jobs was to define what is an excellent product, and then help people understand how to build an excellent product. So to answer the first question, what is an excellent product? We came up with 3 principles of excellent product, which was, very simple design, crafted execution, and targeted use. So I argue any product that has these 3 as really people who are using it are very satisfied with these 3, theoretically could be an excellent product. So ease of use, going back to iPad, you just literally mentioned, it's really easy to use. You need a finger to use it. But in contrast, New York subway is not. It's, it could be super cold actually in summer because, when they have the AC on, it's freezing. If they don't have it, it's really damp and hot. It's not clean. So it's really, you don't feel comfortable. You don't feel at ease when you want to use it. Targeted, yes, it is, exactly what you use the subway for, right? And nothing else. So you don't use the subway to, you never go down to subway to do grocery shopping. You go down to subway because you want to go from point A to point B. The iPad is the same thing. You don't go to iPad. You go to iPad to, for example, have a video call with someone. You don't go to iPad to meet someone in real person. So you know exactly what you're using it for. And crafted execution is more about, again, Apple products, or my Pixel phone. I'm still very loyal to Google brand, and I love my Pixel phone. And why is it? Because it's so beautifully done. It's just so reliable, and it just works, right? I don't have it doesn't kind of break down or system restart or none of that, right? When I'm using it. So one aspect is, what are the principles? What do I want to create, and what quality do I want to reach, right? I need to make sure it's really simple to use. It has very seamless crafted execution, and when people use it, it doesn't break down, it doesn't give them a hard time, and they know exactly what to use it for, right? What is this for? I'm not confused, and when I want to do it, it's get done. Then the next question is, how do you build this, right? If I want to build a product, where do I start? Did you have a question?
Oh, no, just
Okay.
continue.
So what I consult, and this is, whether for you and your peers to want to start thinking about product, or whether my clients who might even have raised millions in tech for their startups, I always start by, when you want to think about the product, there are 3 really simple questions you need to have a very clear answer for. And then in a startup, if at any stage of the life, you realize one of these answers is not very clear, or it has changed, or you don't know, you have to drop everything and constantly focus on creating clarity for these 3 questions, which I'm going to share with you. And then another thing that I tell them is the answer to these 3 questions probably is a different answer every day. So it's really, this is what you have to do all the time. The question number 1 is, what problem are you solving? Because product is, we build something that, as you said, offers some sort of value and people want to use it, right? So what is the problem? Who is the user? So who are we solving this problem for exactly? And to your point again, what value do we deliver that people want to buy this product? And buying this product or pay for this product could be actually money, or it could be time. Right? For example, Gmail, or any of the Google fleet of product that B2C, the consumer, what we use every day without paying, right? Why Google offers that to us without paying? Because there's a lot of value in our use case patterns, And then they can extract this information and sell it to advertisers and make billions and billions of dollars every year with advertisement and other services that are paid and they offer, right? So we have to, you want to build a product, you start by asking these questions, or you want to offer any product or any service, like what problem am I solving, who am I solving it for, and what is the value I offer? Then you have to really think about, if I build it, it needs to be, really easy to use. It has to have a very clear target, and you know what you're using it for, and it has to be delivered really nicely. Then there is a term called product development lifecycle, and that refers to, okay, we have the answer to these questions, we know we want to build an excellent product, how do we do it? And before going to that product development lifecycle conversation, do you have any question? Is it clear?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so then product development lifecycle is about, how do we build a product? Where do I start? And what are the steps I have to take to make sure I build a successful and excellent product? So we created this framework at Google that the goal of it is to be super simple and product agnostic or domain agnostic. And by that, what I mean is, the organization I was working for example, was 2,000 people. We had more than 120 teams and more than 300 features and products. And anything from, a legal product, marketing product, infrastructure, databases, internal tools for Googlers to use. So we had a huge diversity of products that have user interface, meaning, you can see, you go to a website, or products without user interface. For example, there were Teams developer tools that were only working on creating APIs. So there's a bunch of code that there is no real user interface. So we had to really think about, what is the most common process and helpful and simplified, that if you see it, you cannot really unsee it, and then no matter what you work on can help you develop and build the product. So we created this very simple 4-step process, and we just call it, like if you want to call it product development lifecycle or whatever, but this is how it works. Step number 1, as silly as it sounds, is alignment. And in my world of helping co-founders, for example, for startups, is that there are 2-3 people come together and they want to build a product. They are super excited and they talk about it and really get excited again. And then it's like, oh, let's build this. And many times it doesn't matter if they decided a week ago to build this product or 5 years ago. When there are more people involved, I will ask them, okay, what are you building? And I'm just curious. I want to hear what they think they're going to build, and I want to learn what they built before being able to help them. And to my surprise, and now it's more than expectation and surprise, if I sometimes say, if I ask 3 founders what you're building, I can hear easily 5 different answers. Because sometimes even the same person, what they think they are, they want to build is like, oh, this is like 2 very different products that is kind of impossible to build at the same time. You have to choose one. And everybody thinks that they know and they are, in agreement, and other people understand them. But the truth is pretty much almost never the alignment is really there, unless you're really focused on that and constantly go and review and make sure everybody's on the same page. The reason behind that is this phenomenon called curse of knowledge, which means if you know something really well, you forget how much other people do not know about it, right? And then it's like, oh, this is, I don't know, you have been in Tokyo and you assume everybody who, and there are the things and feelings and places and expectation you have from Tokyo, other people should understand it, but there's like so much that you know because you have been there, right? And so this is curse of knowledge, we forget. And there's this other saying that says what we think, what we say, and what other people hear are 3 different things. They're never the same. The reason for that, again, partially curse of knowledge, because what I think is based on all the knowledge I have, right? It is like shapes my thoughts. When I want to communicate on this topic, I cannot throw out everything I know, right? Years of experience on product. So I have to pick and choose. I try to, because I have this knowledge of curse of knowledge, I try to be as unbiased and, fundamental in explaining things and do not assume people know a lot about this, but sometimes I will forget. And that's when people ask, oh, what is this thing, for example, you mentioned about like product excellence principles? What are they, right? And then, so there's a disconnect between what I think and what I can't possibly communicate. But then also, when I communicate something, you that are listening to me, you can understand it again based on what you know, right? And then your perception, your understanding, your background, your experience makes you understand it differently than the next person. So that's why there is like between what we think, what we say, and what other people hear is like three different things. Imagine now you're two, three founders, two, three teammates, unless you very, very intentionally and possibly usually having another neutral person trying to make sure and listen and understand you're aligned, creating alignment is hard. And if you don't have alignment, a bunch of people that you are, really cool and, want to work together and build a product, is really hard to build what you want. Because if you don't know, or there's this misalignment, you work on this to build this and somebody else does something and they could clash. Then the second step, so first step, you sit down and create alignment. Second step is, we call it empathize, and this is about get to know your user. Really, you have to focus on what problems they have and who exactly they are. So there are like a lot of terms into know your users, KNU or KYU, or kind of market research. And these phrases that you probably come across, that you have to, your user research, you have to really understand who they are, and also user type. You have to really define that.
Is it like creating your ideal avatar?
Very interestingly said, yes. However, there's a slight difference here. When you create your ideal avatar, it's really what you want. But when you're building a product, you really have to understand what Sarah wants, because Sarah needs to use it and enjoy
Okay.
it. If the coolest avatar for you might not be for me. And this is also another mistake a lot of developers make, especially if, for example, very frequently I see this in when they're developing developer tools. They say, oh, I am a developer. I'm creating a tool that other developers can use. So I know what they want. So I should, whatever I think is needed, I can build it. Unfortunately, it's never that way, because again, curse of knowledge, people have different disposition, and I might be, wherever I stand, there is no rhyme or reason to assume I present the average pain point or knowledge or need, right? So you can never really judge based on what you yourself like. So the empathizing is like, for you are going to build an avatar that I like. So you really have to understand, who am I? What style am I into? What characteristic I want that avatar to have? Like if it's, if it's a game and it needs to fight, what weapon do I prefer? Or, what style is my style? And and then you can build it. If you assume, because, oh, I talked to Sarah for half an hour, I think this is her persona, like, there's a very, very huge chance. There's a very random chance, almost impossible chance that I would really like it, right? Let's put it that way. But if you and I talk about avatar, and you really ask me, what was your favorite avatar? Like what game you were playing? What was about them that you liked? What was one thing, if you could change about them, you would change? And unless you like ask and try to empathize and understand me, you cannot create the desired avatar. So that's what empathize is. And also, before moving on, is why do you even want to create an avatar for Sarah? Is there a pain point? Is there something she's not happy with, right? And also, what value are you going to offer, right? You might create actually the ideal avatar I ever wanted, but I could have very well in like 5 minutes create that. There is no reason for me to want to pay you for it, right? Or, I have played like 5 years in my life, really intense video games, and I loved it, but I'm not playing anymore. Like, what am I going to do with a new avatar, right? So this is also like understanding, does Sarah even have an avatar problem, right? Would she be willing to pay for it? How much would she be willing to pay for it? What characteristics are non-negotiable? What she doesn't really care for, so it's not important, what kind of shoes this avatar, I don't know. Like for Sarah might be not important, for Shen might be very important, right?
So would you say that someone should, before they start building a product, they should go find someone with the problem they're trying to solve and speak to them first?
Absolutely, absolutely, 100%. There is no other way that in this time and day we can build a product. You have to really, you could come up with an idea that I suspect this is a problem. And that's why I say anytime somebody is pitching or saying we are building this thing, I always put behind it hypothesis, or also sometimes I call it BSUP, which stands for bullshit unless proven, meaning like your hypothesis could be very well BS unless you really can prove it, right? So, and I use it as a joke for us to never forget that we cannot assume unless we have the proof. And then, how do you define that proof? How many people do you need to talk to? Really depends on the product.
What specific questions do you think you should ask your customer?
Very good question. One, let me answer like how you should not ask these questions first. Many times people who have an idea, they're so excited and they fall in love with their solution. You probably have heard this, that it's an advice for entrepreneurs that says, do not fall in love with your solution, fall in love with the problem. Because the solution you think you want to offer, most frequently than not, is not the solution that your users, your buyers want to have. So you really have to identify a big pain point and really focus on that and be really nimble and go through the discovery process, it's called, with the potential client and understand their need and what works for them and what not works for them. And you might come up with something that super excites Sarah, but 99 other clients don't care about it. So that's why you can't just talk to one person. You have to find a group of people. Secondly, the questions you shouldn't ask is that, oh, Sarah, I heard you wanted to have your ideal avatar. I'm going to create this. How do you love it? Like, would you like that? Would you use this? You can never ask because, so many startups fail because people went and said, oh, I want to build this like training on AI. Would you buy it? And they say, yeah, training on AI is really important. And they go and build it and nobody buys that. Oh, it is important, but we don't have budget. Oh, it is important, but we have like 10 other important things, like this is not, so it's really, you have to understand what the real problem is. And if you can never tell the people, oh, I'm building this solution, do you want it or not? For this, for example, in an AI learning platform, instead, you can go and say, oh, when it comes, company X, you have 1,000 people and you want to upskill them, your employees. What are the biggest problems you have? What are the biggest pain points you have? So you have to ask them about what their pain point is. You should not share anything about what you want to build because that you have a bias towards your solution and you're going to make them biased, and most people cannot say no or your idea is shit, right? They will try to be nice and kind, right? So never give them a hint. And the way you can start the conversation is, I was thinking about, like maybe putting focus on solving some problem in this area. Can I, pique your brain and then like hear about what your experience is? And then you go and say, okay, last time you tried to get a learning launched for your company, what was your challenges, right? And then they're gonna say either we didn't have the infrastructure, or we didn't have the right material, or we didn't have this, or we didn't have the budget. So before you run and go and build it for them, you actually already hear what they would have rejected you for 6 months down the road, right? And then in how to ask and how to interview people is like one of my favorite questions is, walk me through last time you faced this problem. What did you do? The problem could be, I hate doing laundry, right? Like, do you love doing laundry?
No. No,
So
I do not.
yeah, so majority 99.9% of people passionately hate doing their laundries, right? But then instead of jumping, it's like, oh, everybody hates doing their laundry, let's build this laundry service. What you can do is like, Sean, I hear you hate doing laundry. Like, walk me through last time you dealt with this. Like, yeah, it's like, I do it always Sunday nights or whenever. It's like when I'm like watching the game or doing this or play, like you figure it out, you have been doing it. And then I'll ask you, have you ever searched for a solution online? So I'm asking you this, Shen, you say you hate doing laundry. Have you ever searched online for a solution?
No, I have not.
So what does that tell me as an entrepreneur and product person is that even if I build the most amazing laundry solution in the world, you're never going to search for it. You're never going to find it, right?
Oh.
And then I have to either build it and spend billions of dollars on advertisement. And it's funny because, I have been using this example a lot. And, since we all know like Instagram listens to our conversations and come up with something just last week, like it showed me a laundry service advertisement. It was hilarious. And I'm like, oh, yet another laundry service that is going to fail because they have been failing throughout history. Right? So this is, again, you might find a pain point that 99% of people have, but nobody ever in the history of humankind went online and searched, how can I outsource my laundry service? Right? So you ask them, walk me through how you solve it. Have you searched for it? And then this is, again, we are empathize. We are trying to understand and validate our BSUP, that we assume everybody hates laundry. Would they, if you build the best, most amazing service that is simple to use and targeted and well crafted and all of these like principles, are people going to use it or not? So this is the interview process you start before building anything, because if you don't know what the real pain point of the people is, if you don't know who's your user, like you might be successful if you build it for like young families with young children because they really do not have time for it, right? They're exhausted, they don't have a sleep, or college student. But for like a professional person who is working from home these days, like me, no, I can do it between my meetings. I'm like, it's easier whenever I want. I don't have to schedule with anyone. Don't have to worry about them dropping it off and what happens and are they gonna, if they wash my clothes and they fall on the floor, God knows how dirty it is. They're not gonna wash it again, right? Like there are all these things that goes through my mind. I don't need it. So again, a problem might be not problem for one person, but doesn't mean there's not another niche. And there's also this saying that's like find the underserved niche, like that group of people that have a really big pain point and nobody is really helping them for, and build an excellent, amazing, extraordinary product that they're raving about it. Really, you have to start very, very shallow and narrow. And if that succeeds, then you can expand by like the law of like 80-20, which means, like this is like for this very tiny sliver of people, you're doing an excellent job. And you can expand a little bit, and this new bunch of people you're introducing, probably 80% of their need is met. Then you have to tweak for the other 20% to keep them happy, and then that's how you expand. And if you think about the history of humankind and products, all the most successful products in the world, they started from a very shallow niche. What are the most successful software products in the world? Facebook. Started from Harvard College alone, Harvard University. Then it expanded to Ivy universities, then expanded to everybody with .edu email address, so anybody who went to school in US, and then all the students globally, and then they opened it to everybody, and that's when, like everybody's aunt and grandparents went on it and kind of killed it itself anyways. But the secret to the success of having billions of people was they figured out how to serve the need of this really small group and expand it. How did Google succeed? They started only by search, serving only to academia for paper search, right? They really figured out how does that work online? How can they build it? Think about Amazon. They started by only, Jeff Bezos said, oh, the online retail is coming, so something big gonna happen. Let me figure it out. And the first thing he chose to sell was books. It's like, book doesn't have any shelf life. They don't go bad. The chances of them getting damaged during shipping is really minimal if they're just wrapped nice enough and they're not going to break. And everybody buys books, so they start and they really figure out how to buy books that today you can buy anything you can think of, right, on Amazon. So it's really understand, empathize, identify the problem, identify who this is a really big pain point for, and deliver to that. And that's the secret to success. So you aligned, you empathized. Next one is figure out measurement. A really big component of building a product is that I launched this product. What is it? Is it amazing? Is it excellent? Or is it shit? Like, how do I know? right? After lunch, you want to know how to assess. Otherwise, how can you improve, right? If you don't measure, you don't know what you have done. However, what is very important is that you have to really think about it as you're empathizing, as you're aligning with your team, is that what, in alignment, you've kind of figured out what problem you want to solve and like what is your hypothesis. And in empathize, you go and you kind of test your hypothesis and pivot and keep turning around until you figure out what is the real problem, who is your audience, and what value do you deliver to them that they want to buy. And here is, okay, so how do I measure that actually I hit the target? Is that if, then these are the metrics in product management come in place. For example, adoption. How many of people that we send this to or download the app really sign up? Then it's engagement. How much time people actually do spend in our app? Do they use it ever? Then it's retention. How many of them after using it once or twice come back? Just because they have signed up and used it for 2 hours one day, it doesn't mean they come back. Then there's task success. I built this app that can help you with writing your essay and correct grammar for you, but does it really correct the grammar for you? How many mistakes could it have possibly? And then there's another most important metric is happiness, which is you literally have to figure out how to ask direct feedback. You have probably seen that in sometimes using Google products online. There is this pop-up on the right bottom corner is like, how happy are you with this product? Very satisfied, not satisfied. These are the happiness tracking. They literally ask you. And so you have to think about, I need to have a good understanding of these interaction in order to be able to judge. If I have a really high adoption rate, if I have a really high retention, meaning people keep coming back, if I have a really high engagement, they keep playing this game, for example, if I ask them, they're going to tell me they're really happy with this product. They really get, if it's like educational game, they really learn what they want to do, then I know I have built. So, but you have to think about it because before building it, because from software engineering perspective, we have this saying that you can never build in metrics into a product. You can build a product with metrics in it. Because tracking these numbers, you have to design your code and write your code in a way that it really can track and is compatible, and it can do it. Because if it doesn't do it when you're writing the code, you cannot change the code in order to add it to it, because it would be so complicated. There's so many components all over that sometimes it's easier to rewrite the whole code than trying to add on metrics to it. So we have alignment, we have created a hypothesis, we have worked with the clients and understood who is the actual client, what is the real problem, what value we offer. We have thought about these are the metrics we need to design and measure, and these are the signals that they'll tell us if somebody clicks on 3 of the buttons we have, it means they're very engaged in this app, and then you start building it. So this is the product life cycle for building a product according to the product excellence framework.
I see. Did you say there were 4 things?
Yes. So alignment, empathize, measurement, figure out what you want to measure, and eventually build. You start building the product.
Right. I want to go back to the empathize part where you talked about engaging with your user. What are 3 questions do you think they should ask the user?
Is that talk to me about dealing with this problem. Talk to me about doing your laundry. Talk to me about managing your finances, depending on what hypothesis you have created that people do not have any, at some point, like big banks decided, not big bank, Intuit, actually, as a matter of fact, the company decided, their financial focused system. And it said, you know what, people do not have one central platform that they can connect all their bank accounts, credit card, checking account, saving account, whatever, stock option they have, to have like a holistic view of their finances. And, they started talking to people. It's like, tell me, what is the pain point? How, what frustrates you about managing your finances? Like, how do you get a sense of your holistic finance and, net value perspective, right? And then they learn, oh yeah, there's no way I have to go through, like I have 5 credit cards, I have 3 bank accounts, 2 saving, 5 checking, and or whatever. Like it's really complicated. I have to keep track of them on hand or in paper or in a document. And then eventually they came up with this product called mint.com that you connect all your account information, and when you log in, it literally in one line shows you what is your net asset value. So you really have to, you have built a hypothesis that I believe people have this problem, and the type of people who have this problem are this kind of group. They are like, people in their mid 30s to late 40s that, young professional, they have created this asset amount. They really want to learn how to invest better, or my target audience is 17 years old, or whenever people have their first credit account, we want to really show them until like they're after college, 18 to 23, for example, to learn how to manage finances. So to really like focus on that and go and interview. And one thing that is really interesting when you start interviewing, a lot of times people ask me, how do I know I found the answer? Like, how many people do I interview, and how do I know I have identified the type of people that this problem is really relevant for it? And the answer is, when you start seeing pattern, when you start hearing the same answer over and over, I ask you, Shen, and I ask your other classmates or, friends that you hang out with, and everybody says, you know what, I have one or two credit cards. I don't know how to manage my credit score. I don't know how to, do this to me. I don't, how do I open another one? How many do I need? And when you and your friend and everybody like talks about, these are the confusion, they don't know how to manage their finance, I'm going, okay, so then maybe my group is people 18 to 22, right? And then you decide to, make that hypothesis. You have kind of validated, and you're going to go build it and then test it and see if people like it.
Okay, so let's put this into like an example. Let's say I had an idea to solve a specific problem. What's like a quick rundown on what exactly someone should do? And this is talking about people who want to have a startup.
Yes.
Like,
So the first step is to create your hypothesis. There, I can recommend a couple of books actually. They're very easy reads and they're very helpful. One is called the Right It. It's written by one of the very early engineers at Google, and it talks about, building the right it rather than building it right, right? Before you start building, and that's why like build is the last fourth step. Before you start building anything and putting emphasis on building it right, you need to make sure you're building the right it, right? You create a hypothesis, you understand users, you define what metrics can tell you if you built the right it or not, and then you start building it, and hopefully you build it right. So that's a really good book. There's another really easy book to read on the user interview, the question you ask, what questions to ask. It's just a couple of hours of read, and I cannot emphasize how helpful this book is. It's called The Mom's Test. And the premise of that is, if you go and ask your mom, I have this idea and I want to build it, your mom going to say, oh, it's amazing, honey. Like, I'm so proud of you. Go build it. And it like alludes to this fact that you can't ask people for their opinion about your idea. You have to ask them about their pain points. You have to ask them about, severe this is, and what have they tried to do. Is like, oh, for managing my finances, I had to create this Excel sheet and constantly go and log into 10 different accounts, and sometimes one account is not available, so it's like I have to go back next week and balance has changed, and I'm so frustrated. Then you really know you are hitting into something. This is something people need to know. They have no means for it. And yeah, these two books are really, really helpful to start. So you really say, okay, you're an entrepreneur, you want to build a product. What is your hypothesis? That's the first question I ask. And the way you say hypothesis is, my hypothesis is this group of people, like women between age of 21 and 35, have this kind of problem, which is, I don't know, like, they want to make sure, well, I don't know, whatever, like they want to have the best laptop out in the market. And then what is the value? Is like my, for example, my service is going to rank the, light, easy to carry laptops with really super power performance. We give this score and they can go there and decide what laptop they want to buy, right? So this is your hypothesis. And then what is in the book I mentioned earlier, the Right It, is that then you say if X% of Y do Z, This is the validation process. Then I'm building something that people want to buy. For example, women between 21 and 35 in US are, let's say, 15 million. You say if 10% of women between 21 and 35 click on my recommendation, come to my website and do the assessment and click on this link and buy it, then I've hit a gold mine. And then obviously you can't go and test with the 15 million, but you take a sample. If you target 150 instead of 50 million, with 10%, meaning 15 of these women click the link and buy. If only 2 are doing it, it tells you maybe no, this is not something that people care. If out of 150, 100 are doing, it's like, oh my God, you've like jackpot, right? Like this is something is so important that people want to use it.
I see. Then they can begin billing.
Then you go through the process of really defining and putting everything, and then if I'm going to build it, what signal? Like I really want to emphasize this measurement, because with this, let's say you say, oh yeah, actually people really want to do it. I validated, I tested with 150 people with this like prototype that is not really scalable or really is like a hack, and I'm going to go build it. If you skip that measurement part, what would happen? You build this platform and product, and you're like, oh, now we are live, and we build an excellent product because this was our hypothesis. And I come in as like, what is your proof? How do you know? It's like, oh, I validated back then with in front of 100 people. And I'm like, okay, right now, how many people actually come to your website? If you haven't thought about it, you cannot track it. If you cannot track it, what can you tell me? And I'm like, how many people come to this from referral by other friends? How many of those people who visited your website are going to go through this comparison process? How many of those people who did go through a comparison process are going to actually click on the purchase, and how many of those are going to actually pay for it, right? Or put it in the cart and abandon it, or people put it in the cart, check it out, right? And if you haven't thought about these, that you need to track them. And then after this, you need to have like a review process. Like they should come and give you a review. Actually, no, your recommendation didn't work, because it's not comfortable. It's not blah blah blah. Or this is amazing. So these are the things you have to think about how to design and build it. But to your point, yes, if you define the hypothesis, if you validate the hypothesis, if you define how to test on an ongoing basis, to measure how well your product is performing, then you can go and build the product.
So then, when you do that 4-step process, is that pretty much everything done? What else should someone focus on?
Well, think about it as really, really high level. Like we haven't even talked about build at all. And build itself has so many different steps, right? Like how do you, come up with a design? They could, like terms like user experience, you might have heard, or user journey. Like you have to design user journey. And what user journey is, when you want to like build something, you have to think about, okay, when would be the first time that this user thinks about my product? What are they doing? What are they needing that it makes them to think about this, right? Sarah wants to buy a laptop. How could I make sure Sarah is aware of my product? For example, Sarah goes online and there's a good chance I'm going to search best laptop, light laptop with this much of power for, whatever I'm doing. And then that, for you, in order to be, there is a very, very likely chance I'm going to do actually that search online. I'm not even going to go ask my friends. I'm just going to directly go online. Certain things you ask for referral, for example. And then you need to make sure your website is search optimized, right? You're using the right, search engine keys that when I search for it pops up. And from there, so that we are thinking about user experience. Step one is they would do the search. They find our website, they click on it, they tell us what criteria is important for them, what is their budget, what is the size, what if they have any preference for brand, for example. These are all user journey. We have to give them the option to do this. And then the comparison, what information should we show them in comparison page that gives them really good thing? Is it like every details, or there are like 3 details that are most important? And these are the things you you actually learn and optimize by measurement, right? You see, like, if I give these like information, how many % of people are gonna like click on it to open it, to really care for it, right? Or maybe you can give them a selection, and these are the things that you keep track of, and you can use them to improve your product. And then how would they click on it? How would they put it on the cart? You have to create the cart, you have to create the checkout process, everything until they add their information, their address, their bank account, and they click on pay now, right? And then after my user experience has ended, you have to go and make sure you have the infrastructure and logistics to immediately pack and ship and deliver, right? So this is like a user journey from the moment I start to the moment I order, then the moment it's shipped, the moment I receive it, the moment I open it and unpack it and use it for a few days, and until, my journey comes to an end when I leave a review, right? So then this is like a build process, and this is like the very, very high level of the design. But then how would you break this down? How would engineers build this? On top of this user journey is, how do they sign up for your system? How do they retrieve their password if they found out? So there, we have here two different type of user journey. We call them toothbrush and pivotal. Toothbrush, apparently Sergey Brin, a founder of Google, has said like toothbrush is one of the most successful products in the universe because every single person uses twice a day, hopefully, right? Before social media, there was no such a product that people would use it twice a day, right? Right now we're impulsive, like turning on, unlocking our phone a million times, but before it didn't. So toothbrush is the most common use cases. Think about Gmail. The most common use cases, you go there to check your mail. Do you have a new mail? And then next to that is open a mail. Next to that is answer a mail or forward a mail, right? What are the top, that this is the core value and use case that people come to your product. And pivotal are the things that happen once in a lifetime, but if it doesn't work, you lose the user. Imagine if I forget my password and I cannot retrieve or reset it. This is actually literally when Gmail came out 15 years ago or whenever it was, they didn't have any way for retrieval password. So you could have a Gmail account, you forget your password, you're locked out of your account. Now you have like double authentication, phone number, another email. It took them several years to build it. And I remember I had a professor at university who gave this example about rare cases, but very important, is that, if you own a car and you have driven on that car 100,000 miles, the amount of this that you have driven in reverse is probably not even one single mile. But could you imagine building a car without a reverse gear, right? So these are the pivotal experience. So then you have to define, all this user journey, what is toothbrush, what is pivotal, then all the steps they need, you build it, then you test it, you have Q&A. So the whole build process is a different aspect of it. So yes, but however, the value of this 4-step framework we talked about is, when you start building a product, when you get into product management, or as a developer, as a user experience designer or user experience researcher, the magic about this is everything you do that is relevant to building a product falls within one of these 4 categories, right? And then you would
Okay,
know where in the process you are.
I see. So then, I just want to move on to what it is exactly that you do, because like, when you go into a company to help them with a product, are they at a certain stage, or can you go in at any time as long as they can afford your fees or something like that?
So there are 2 different services I offer. One is, people want to build a product, they don't have product expertise. I go there and help them, like how to build it, how to validate, how to align, how to understand users, and how to come up with an idea. Like, you do all this research, ask users, then innovation happens. You have to kind of decide how to solve this problem and then go test it and see if it works, or you need to change your solution. Another type of service that I offer that is kind of maybe outside the interest of this topic is, when organizations grow big, like literally what happened at Google, they lose the sense of how do we build successful products in this organization, or what are best practices. I can help them devise those practices, and like, it's called change management, or organizational change. It's like, how do you change the culture of an organization to be aligned with customer focused design and excellent products.
What's some tips on doing that, on changing the culture? Like some quick tips.
Um, this is like a whole field of science on its own. People get PhDs on it, but to summarize it is um, to change the culture, it has to be done from within. Like for example, I changed the culture of product in my organization at Google because I was at Google. I identified the problem. It was frustrating and I was really passionate about it. So passion is really important and collaboration. And there's this methodology that is like, we call it piloting. You come up with an idea that you suspect, again, it's a hypothesis that if the teams do this way, they're going to be successful. So you find a pilot team that is happy to run a pilot with you, you run with it, and hopefully it's successful, and you celebrate it big. Everybody knows, oh, this team did it this way. They're so much more faster, efficient, better. Then they will like try to, they would be excited to try it, and then you slowly roll it out.
Oh, so it's more of like you start a little culture and then you spread it.
Yes, yes, exactly,
I
exactly.
see.
And then there is this like, they say if the tipping point for a cultural change is about 30% adoption in society or in organizations. So if 30% of people get on, you know, iPhones, iPhone is already a trend and is like really something that stays here, or value iPhone, or they think iPhone is cool, or 30% of organizations, oh, if we follow product excellence framework, we can build better products. So then, the organization, it's just kind of like a avalanche after. That's the critical mass.
Okay, and just to be respectful of your time, I have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
If someone was younger and they just wanted to make some money and
Mm-hmm.
they obviously to make money you have to have exchange of value. So they'd have to sell a product, but the product could be either a physical product, a digital product, or a service.
Yes.
Which one do you think they should do? Which one do you think is the easiest to do?
So it's a really good question, but the way I'm going to answer it is that, I would always say, as long as you're into, before your 20s or 20s, try to learn as much as possible and experiment and learn and do whatever you want, like whatever idea, hypothesis you come up with, try to test it and launch it. And there's no answer. I cannot say do services versus product versus this because we have successful people in each of them, right? I don't know who is most successful. All I can say, just try and see which one you're most excited about, you're most talented about. It comes naturally to you. So my advice is try everything, but focus on these three questions. If one thing you want to take away from this conversation is always have clarity. What problem are you solving? Exactly. Who is your demographic? And the shallower and the smaller, the better. Many people think they have to deliver something from day one that solves everybody's problem. If you're solving everybody's problem, then you're not really solving anybody's problem. But if you solve, so imagine like this is the flat line. This is your curve of impact for everybody versus this is your curve of impact. You offer something extremely valuable for like a limited group of people. It's much, much easier to like kind of expand that really big curve than bring this up for everybody. So keep that in mind. So really, you understand who are you serving and what value do you bring? Would they be willing to pay for it? And this is not something you can ask people. It's like, oh, if I build this, are you going to pay $200 a month for it? And they say, oh, yes, like go for it. But they don't do. So you have to figure out how to fastest way of creating a prototype and test and trial, test and trial. And then, if it's available, would people pay for it? There's like a lot of tricks to do that. For example, they say landing page. You make an advertisement, very small, limited number, for example, on Facebook and Instagram, $100 budget. And say, this is, oh, we can give you this. And you don't even have a website. You have a link to a website and they click on it and come here. It's like, oh, thank you so much for visiting. We are about to launch, but if you give us your email address, we're gonna, immediately, like you're gonna be the first people who we're gonna inform. You're gonna have like a discounted rate, whatever. And if people do not give you email address, maybe they clicked by accident. If they do, so you can, validate and see if something you have to offer is something people want to pay for.
Okay, I see. Oh, is it okay if we talk about like your marketing in your company? Like, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Because I really enjoy marketing, so I like to talk about how like businesses are marketing themselves and stuff like that. Um, for like your company, what type of marketing are you currently doing?
It's an interesting question. I actually don't do much. Mine is more word of mouth because I have my reputation. People who have worked with me refer me to other people. But the way I do it, maybe not digitally, is kind of also by going to different events that I'm interested in, or different events that people who I cater to go to those events. For example, I like to consult startups or people who are starting or they want to do fundraising. So I go to events that people who want to do fundraising go to those events. And for example, last night I was at an event and met this guy, and I talked to him for a few minutes. We just before, this conversation with you, I had coffee with him, and for an hour and a half. And it's like, oh my God, like I have been in Silicon Valley. He came from Montreal. It's like nobody gave me these many, valuable advice that you gave me in this like 1.5 hours. My advice comes from my experience, right? I don't make anything up. I just made a lot of mistakes, and had to learn from them. And a lot of my advice is how to do, and a lot of my advice is how not to do. Because if you do it this way, you're going to fail. But if you do it this way, you have a much better chance for success. Just going to where you can find your customer is.
How many clients do you think you could handle at one time?
It really depends because sometimes right now I have a really, really big client that takes like 35 hours my week. So anything else I do is like another 20 hours I have to figure out. I'm hosting, for example, series and early stage investment. I do a bunch of other stuff. Sometimes I have clients that I'm, engaged with them just 5 hours a week. It really depends on the level of engagement.
Is it like a consulting type of model?
Yes, yes.
Oh, I see, I see. Have you ever tried like running ads to it?
No, no, but it's
May
a,
I
it's
ask
a,
why?
as I said, because I was fortunate enough to not really need it yet, but I've definitely considered. And I think one thing, if I wanted to change something, is to create more content, to be,
Yeah.
people who know me directly, know me and know my experience and my value add. But there are a lot of people, I have a lot of knowledge and experience that I really like to share. If it can help somebody, God knows, across the globe where they are, and just by reading that material, I really would like to share that, and I'm trying to find time for it and do it. Hopefully soon.
Yeah, from what I've seen, content is like a really, from my experience, content is a really good way to market nowadays.
Absolutely,
Like, you
100%,
just give out free advice, and
100%.
if you give out advice for free that's better than what most people pay for, you're gonna have an inflow of clients that are like crazy.
And I have heard, another thing of like getting to that point is, which I really believe in it, is keep giving advice for free based on your experience, not just bullshit you read somewhere, like something you really
Yeah,
deeply understand. Keep giving it for free until people um, want that advice and are willing to pay for it, right? And like when I, for example, talk to this guy for an hour and a half, I don't hesitate. I share whatever I know, whatever I think could help him. The problem is many times, I tried my best in this conversation to share as much information as I could, but your audience can only retain so much based on, it's like a long
yeah,
conversation, you might be distracted or you don't quite understand it because you don't have experience in it. But if you could listen to this conversation, next time you see something about user experience, all of a sudden your ears perk. Like, oh, I heard like this, woman talking about this, and now I understand a little bit what it is, right? So that kind of also it is like when they hear these topics, they could recognize and help themselves. But also at some point they realize, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. What she said is right. I need to do it, but I can't do it. I don't know how to do it. I don't have time to do it. I can hire her to do it for me.
I see. Have you ever tried to get on more podcasts? Because this is a really good way to get content. Like,
Yes. I mean, yes and no. I had some people reach out to me, and I never, I don't know. I was super busy learning myself, and I didn't. But now I feel I am in a place that, I have something that could be useful to people. So I'm very happy to participate in more.
yeah, do you think it's like the time aspect that you're not doing as much of the content creation? because it's like a whole other thing.
Yes, yes, because when you're solo consultant, like at least 50% of your time is, I've heard people say this 50% of your time is like marketing yourself and putting yourself out there and client pipeline building. Um, I, you know, I used to live in Berlin from 2020 to end of last year, and this year, kind of more or less, I have been trying to settle in the area. So there was a lot going on, and I had a bunch of clients that I was like fortunate to work with them. So I didn't have time. But I think what I have learned this year is that there are many things, many different things I can help people with. But what I like to do is like identify only a few and be, targeted use. Like people know exactly what they should come to me. And now that after, working on different projects with them, I'm getting that more solidified. I know which areas do I like to work, or which areas I can offer the most value and combine them. Then it is better for me to, right now I'm ready to go on more, podcast and talk about that very specific thing, create content, and be known for that.
Yeah, I think if you want to do well on like the content creation side, um, especially on the short channels like YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram Reels, you have to post every day,
Yes, I hear
like
that.
one one to three posts every day actually.
Yeah, and that's probably why I'm hesitant.
Yeah,
I can't
I
do
know.
that commitment.
Yeah, I've spoken to a couple people, and that's also why they don't want to do it because it just takes too much time.
Yeah. Yeah,
But I think if you,
but for me it's another challenge. Like the clients I'm serving are not on TikTok looking for product advice or on Instagram, right? Or LinkedIn might be the right venue for me and type of service I offer.
yeah,
And yeah, I have thought about it, but then I'm at the same time I'm in Silicon Valley, like there are 4 or 5 events every night I can go to and meet people in person, that I
yeah,
can listen to what the challenges are and just tell them, how I can help them and have coffee with them, and then, so it is a lot more effective than paying for a random ad. I don't know who will see it or how much would they trust the person based on that app.
you could also post the shorts on LinkedIn,
Yes, yes. Yeah, that's
so that
that's
could also
so when
drive.
I say I want to do more and I haven't had a chance, that's exactly what I want to do more. So I considered TikTok or Instagram, and I realized no, these are not where my audience will go to look for advice. And yeah, if you have any suggestion, if there's any way you can help me, I would be very happy to collaborate with you on that.
Yeah, I'd definitely love to help you on that part
Awesome.
because like I really enjoy content creation. I have a honestly I have a team because I actually run a marketing agency,
Mm-hmm.
but it's kind of small. It's mostly like just for like friends and family
Nice.
most of the time because like I don't want to take in other people because I have to put a lot of effort into it.
Yes.
So I only want to like work with the people who I want to succeed, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
Because it's like
maybe,
a long-term goal.
yeah, maybe after this, we can have a conversation and see, you can explain to me more what your offering is and then see if I can benefit from them.
Yeah, definitely. All right,
Okay.
well, thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course. It's my pleasure.
It was really appreciated. You gave really good advice, better than I thought you would.
Oh, thank you. I
Amazing
appreciate.
advice. It was really like insightful.
I'm happy to hear that. I hope this is also useful for your audience. And I don't know when you're publishing this podcast, if they can find me on LinkedIn or if they want to directly email me with
Yeah.
questions. My email address is Sarah, Sara, at Saza dot space, like space as
hmm
SPACE. I'm happy to answer any questions they might have.
Do you have like a company that they could contact if they have like how could they get in contact with you besides your email?
Um, I mean, the best possible way is email. If they find me, Sara Zare, and search for Google and LinkedIn, they can find me and reach out to me there, or email. These are the best, most convenient ways to reach me.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much